From Unity of Houston, Texas, this is the Awakened Life with Reverend Howard Caesar. Unity is a non-denominational spiritual community providing a positive, practical, and progressive approach to Christianity. Let's join the service in progress now with Reverend Howard Caesar.
There was a little boy who had somehow arrived at and concluded that the name for God was Andy. Andy. And so he was asked, why Andy? And he says, because really, they're always singing at my church, Andy walks with me, Andy talks with me, Andy tells me I am his own. All right. As a kid growing up in the Midwest in the state of Wisconsin, and I was fortunate enough to, after the age of 6, when we moved out into a subdivision, back of the subdivision, our backyard was up against a woods that went on for miles and miles, and it was a great playground for me to grow up in. And so I loved to climb trees, and we spent a lot of time out in the woods, and us kids would actually build some tree houses. They were not all that safe, but you could be up in them. And but as a young kid, boy, I could shimmy any tree. Yeah, there was no tree that could not be conquered. It didn't matter how high that first branch was, I could shimmy like I cannot anymore. And so the reward, of course, of going high is the view, and it's the perspective. It's simply the feeling of being high above things and having that greater view. And I think people who like to hike and are hikers, they tend to like to hike where there are hills and where there may be mountains, so that they, on their hike, can find their way to higher elevations and also have that exhilarating experience of having a view, another perspective, and the feeling of being kind of above it all. There's an energy that goes with going to higher places. And that lure can be very strong in some people, and it can take them into unique ways of seeking and searching out that kind of high. It was about 2 weeks ago that there was an article in the newspaper, the Houston Chronicle, and the headline read, "American Climber Among 3 Dead on Mount Everest." And I want to read you just a few excerpts about the climbing of Mount Everest and what it involves in some individuals' desire and lure to go higher. So the article was Kathmandu, Nepal. 3 Mountain Everest climbers died as storms and high winds closed fleeting windows of good weather that opened a chance for teams to push toward the top of the world's tallest peak, authorities said Sunday. Roland Yearwood, a doctor from Alabama who returned to Everest after surviving the earthquake-triggered avalanche in 2015, died not far from the summit on the Nepal side early Sunday. Slovak mountaineer Vladimir Sturba also died Sunday, and search operations continue for an Indian climber who was separated from his guide Saturday. And on the Tibet side of the mountain, a 54-year-old Australian climber, Francesco Enrico Marchetti, died after suffering altitude sickness. Sherpa discoverers have found the bodies of 4 climbers inside a tent on the highest camp on Mount Everest, raising the death toll this climbing season, to 10. The bodies were at Camp 4 at South Col, located at the 26,247-foot level, which is the last camp before climbers make the summit attempt. Do you realize 26,247-foot level? Have you ever been to the 7,000-foot level, snow skiing or somewhere, and you get a little lightheaded and it's tough going up the stairs? It's more than 4 times that. The air is thin. There's a lot of challenge in that. And the peak is actually at the 29,035-foot level. And went on to say any recovery attempt would require many Sherpas who would have to bring the bodies down to Camp to from Camp 4, from where they can be winched by helicopter. Sherpas said that Saturday was a busy day for helicopter evacuations, mostly altitude-related sicknesses, frostbite, and snow blindness. There are many climbers who had to turn around halfway to the summit due to high winds. They talk about also that the mountain itself is alive and going through changes. And in the article it said, quote, "Mountaineers confirmed this season that the little remains of the famed Hillary Step, the wall of rock that was once the final test of endurance before the summit, and named for mountaineer Edmund Hillary, who was the first to reach the Everest summit in 1953 with fellow climber Tenzing Norgay." And it concludes by saying, "This year, a record number of climbers are trying to scale the world's highest peak, with 375 foreigners receiving permits, the most since 1953. An estimated 60 climbers made the summit in Nepal on Sunday alone," authorities said. So in 1953, one group finally, Edmund Hillary and his friend, made it to the top. And since then, many others have followed, and in one day, as many as 60 made it to the summit of Mount Everest. Sort of like the 4-minute mile. One person conquered that barrier, and then others said, "I want to experience that, I can do that, and I can prepare the way, I can do whatever it takes, I'm drawn to it, I'm called to it, there's something in me that wants to experience this." So what is it really that causes people to want to climb mountains and to risk their lives? You know, attempting to climb a mountain like the highest mountain on the planet, Mount Everest. We could say, well, you know, we want to climb it because it's there. I know that doesn't do it for me. We could say it's because they like a challenge, you know, because it's a test. It's a big test. Provides the opportunity to learn about themselves through the climb. It's like a classroom of self-discovery. Perhaps by going higher on the mountain, it offers some kind of obvious internal high that is more than simply the physical height and elevation that one has achieved. But there is a mountain metaphor that has existed really in all of the teachings down through centuries, really. And that mountain metaphor has really been part of wisdom literature, spiritual teachings. It's a metaphor for life and for growing spiritually and the movement of one's evolution of consciousness toward experiencing God and experiencing oneness with God. It's going higher. And Jesus taught us even this idea about a mountain and the different kinds of challenges you may face regarding it. And you may remember where he said that in teaching the principle of faith, that if you have faith as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, "Remove from yonder place, and be cast into the sea, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you." And so he's talked about moving mountains as a metaphor. And so life itself, you know, life itself is a mountain. When you were born, you landed on a mountain. It's the mountain called planet Earth. And there was something inside you that said, "Now climb, climb." As you're here, your mission is to climb high, experience new heights of who you are, new heights of the dimension that God has placed inside of you. The blueprint that you are is needing to be experienced. And so we face this mountain, and it's not a negative in the sense that it's not a fight, but it's a flow, you know, and we know that God is on the mountain. God is with us in this mountain experience, in the whole climb, if you will. And actually, we are thrust into this every day. Every day, we begin our day with a climb. Do we not? We climb out of bed. We climb into the shower. We climb into some set of clothes. We climb into our car. And we climb to work, and we climb through the challenges that our work provides, the different relationships that we interface with and the different things that come at us on a daily basis. It's a climb, meaning that you're given opportunities over and over to learn and to grow. Now, there are times where we reach plateaus. It's not always hard. Sometimes we catch our breath. Sometimes we may have a not so steep incline. And other times it may be like hitting a wall. It's really a big challenge that we're facing. It demands a lot of us. But we are all being called up higher, really. And this is reflected, of course, in many of the teachings. And one such teaching is from the Apostle Paul in Philippians, that wonderful verse you're all familiar with. And it's found in chapter 3. It starts with verse 12. And I like where he begins because he says, this is Paul, not that I am already perfected. And what he means is, you see, we are perfect in spirit. We are whole and complete. The spirit of us is perfect, folks. And it's the soul of us that has to catch up to the spirit of us. It's to catch up to how God holds us to be. And you and I have free will. We have choice. We have how we're going to think and how we're going to act and how we're going to be and all of these things. And so we have to connect with the spirit of us and be taken higher with it. And that's a process because we have free will. And we don't always want to do what the spirit within is telling us. And so Paul starts by saying, not that I am already perfected, I press on, that I may lay hold of that for which Christ Jesus has also laid hold of me. But one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead, I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. That's the New King James Version. The Old King James refers to, instead of the upward call, it's called the high calling. But it's one and the same. And so the teaching of how to climb a mountain or how to get higher or how to get high in life, it's there. There's one thing at the very least you must do, and that's forget those things which are behind, and you reach for those things which are ahead, which are before you. And so the goal all through the Old Testament really is to dwell where? To dwell in the secret place of the Most High. That's where we are to dwell. And that is told to us over and over, the Most High. And we're being called to get high on God, to get high on life, to get high on learning and remembering who we really are and what we're here to be about. And so there are many Bible references that actually refer to on high. Okay? So they're in Deuteronomy, they're in 2 Samuel, they're all through Psalms, they're through Isaiah, they're through, just a few of them. Let me tell you, God will set you on high. Thou has lifted up my eyes on high. Thou also has lifted me up on high. O God, set me on high. Our God who dwells on high. He poured on us from on high. Make your voice be heard on high. Be endued with power from on high. Have you had enough? So, if you go to a Bible concordance, which, helps you find different words that show up in the Bible and how often, and if you go to the word mount, mountain, or mountains, there are literally hundreds of references. And so we live and we die on the mountain of this three-dimensional world we live in called planet Earth. Earth is a mountain, whether you realize it or not. And we are all at different levels. We're all at different elevations, if you will, on this climb. Some are at lower places, some are at higher states of consciousness. And if you recall from our article, they call them camps. Camp 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to the summit. Now, we have many camps along the way. We get to rest for a while. We go through this challenge, that challenge. We learn from it. We rest. Then we go on. And we come to a camp and we rest. And then there's next. But there is always a next, you see. Because we are moving higher and higher toward our Most High God. And so if you believe in reincarnation, which half the planet really does, folks, so you wouldn't be alone, there is the idea that you come into this mountain having lived on the mountain and climbed the mountain before. You come back in where you left off. And then you live this life and you climb. And you grow as a soul toward the Most High God, which is about love and oneness. It's a state of being. Jesus reached the summit. He's calling us to it, of course. And then we die wherever we left off. And we go to camp. And we rest for a bit, and then we come back in again. Now, whether you believe in that or not, doesn't matter. It's simply that we all are on a journey. Some of us will hit a plateau in our journey, in our climb, where we play it safe, and we may stay there for a while, and we don't want to move off that plateau. And it may be because of fear. It may be because of something that happened that ties us to the past. It may be because of apathy. We're really not understanding that we signed on, that we have a covenant in which we asked for this life so we could climb, so we could grow, so that we could evolve, so we could be what we are held to be in the mind of God. And once we again remember that, we're off and running, and we're climbing. And so some of you remember on this idea of fear or being stuck in an event of our past. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is the great example, of course, and they were, Lot's wife was instructed not to look back. And if she did, which she did, he turned into a pillar of salt. That's a metaphor also. A pillar of salt meaning frozen in time, stuck in an event, looking back, looking to the past, being held to that. You can't go forward when you do. And so the angels had come and instructed Lot and his wife with these words from the passage, quote, "Escape for your life, look not behind you, neither should you stay in the plain," in the flat, the plateau. You can't stay there, okay, the low place. "Escape to the mountain, lest you be consumed." So how many of us are consumed by our past in some way, It causes us to be stuck on the plains in lower elevations when we really are always being called to higher elevations. There's an Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." And it's always important that we not be impacted by the past and we not be so overly frightened about the future, because what lies within us is what it's all about. The Apostle Paul said it, of course, "This one thing is that I do, is I forget about the past and I reach forth to the future for the prize of the upward calling, the higher calling of God." And so we are always to remember that there is something within us that is wanting to be experienced and touched and felt, and that's what the calling is. We said that Edmund Hillary was the first man to reach the summit of this tallest mountain on earth. We said that he did that in 1953. You realize that he did not make it on his first attempt. He had to turn back. You realize that he did not make it on his second attempt with his team. He had to turn back. And when he got back down from the mountain after his second climb, it is said that he turned to look at the mountain and he raised his arm to the mountain and he said, "I will climb you because you're not getting any bigger and I am." And he climbed the mountain on his next try. You see, because that's what climbing mountains are all about. Now, we may not climb physical mountains, but we are climbing mountains every day of some sort, every one of us, to emerge the more that we really are and are held to be in the mind of God. The more loving, the more understanding, the more compassionate being that we are to be about and experiencing on this planet. And so there's along with Edmund was William Murray, if you remember. And William Murray was on that third expedition. And William Murray is the one that has given us that great quote that is referred to so often, where he says, "Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to pull back, and always ineffectiveness." Because really you have to understand that the value of having a goal is not necessarily in achieving it alone. You see, Edmund Hillary didn't make it to the summit the first 2 times, but he was able to grow. And it's the growth that you experience in pursuing the climb, whatever it is. You may not feel like you conquered it, but there's always something to learn. And so William Murray went on to say, the moment that one definitely commits themselves, providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. And a whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. We resonate with that quote. I do, because I have seen that happen in my life. When I made a commitment to something and made that decision, a whole host of things begin to fall into place, and you meet people and doors open and things come together. The universe is supporting you. Now, what takes us to the mountain or these higher elevations? We get a hint from it in an account that we find in actually the Gospel of Matthew chapter 17, where Jesus goes to, we're told that he goes to the mountain apart, and we're told that he takes with him 3 disciples. Now you have to understand that there is something metaphysical in this lesson, and that is, as Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, he taught the principle of 12 powers. In deep meditations over years and hours of meditating, he came up with and was led and guided to the idea that every disciple represented a spiritual power or an internal spiritual attribute that needs to be developed and grown. And as it glows and becomes more powerful, it takes you to the mountains of the God, the higher places, the Most High God. And so anyway, in this story of Jesus, this passage, Jesus took Peter, John, and James. Well, he has a whole book, Charles Fillmore, on which disciple represents these different attributes. And Peter represents faith, John represents love, and James, the brother of John, represents wisdom, spiritual discernment. And so Jesus took faith and love and wisdom, and that's what took him to a mountain experience. And that's the wisdom of that. And in the story, Jesus was transfigured, as he went to the mountain with these 3. And they observed his face. This is the quote, his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah talking with him. When one commits, providence moves too. There are all sorts of things happen. Moses and Elijah showed up. So in our development, in our climb, we always want to take faith and love and wisdom, spiritual good judgment, spiritual discernment with us. Every person is in this life to climb. It is inbred. Something calls us higher. It cannot be denied. It's where we are. We are on a mountain. We have an internal phone call, and the phone is ringing all the time. Every day you get up, the phone is ringing, come up higher, come up higher. You can't get away from the ring of the divine inside of you calling you higher. It's always calling. And it's a covenant to grow, to evolve, to climb. And so we will face storms, we will face high winds, walls of rock, if you will, but we have to keep growing and face whatever it is. And the question becomes then, are you a match for this? Can you match this patch? And you face this patch on the mountain and make your way. Life will provide always a next opportunity wherever you are. My next opportunity is I'm leaving the pulpit. I'm not retiring. I still have a lot of tread on these tires. But I'm going on to what's next. And it's like my phone has been ringing, and I can't ignore it. And it's calling me to something next. And so I have to trust. I have to let go. I have to take with me love and faith and wisdom and go forward. It's a little scary, but it's also exciting and exhilarating as I'm going high to my next height, if you will. Reverend Michael Gott, he's on the climb also. He's climbing into the leadership position here. He's been prepared. He's ready. He's made the decision. He's made the commitment. The earth will move. Providence will move and help him. He needs your support, though, too. He's been prepared with over 20 years of leadership in New Thought churches. whether it be as leading the music department or in the last 6-7 years as a speaker and teacher. He's been senior minister here. He's traveled around once a month to different ministries and experienced the best of the best, seen what's working and what doesn't work. He's full of ideas. He's rich and committed and ready. And so that's his mountain to be climbed, but nobody can get to the top alone, believe me. And whatever climbing I did here, I did never do it alone. I have many, many people to thank. And I know Michael certainly welcomes your help and support. He'll do a great job. But change is in the air for me, for Michael, for you, for this church. And I think changes are necessary always in life. It means that we're learning and growing. If nothing is changing, then you need to look for a change. It's just like Norman Vincent Peale used to say, if you don't have a problem, go get a problem. So the only the only people who don't have a problem are in Forest Lawn. That was Norman Vincent Peale. So change is necessary in our personal life, in our family life, in our professional life, in our spiritual life. We ought to be changing because we are asked to get high on life, get high on who we are, get high on joy, get high on love, get high on God. Sometimes we have to push through stagnant energies. We pause, we get stuck, we kind of look back like Lot's wife. And so change is a part of our life. Make it your goal to make each day just a little bit better, to be a little bit better a person somehow or another in your attitude, in your thoughts, in how you hold yourself, how you show up in this life. And if you do, you will be getting high on life. And you will be climbing one more step, perhaps each day, toward finding home in oneness with your most high God. It's my prayer for all of you and all of us. God bless you all.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. We invite you to be with us again next Sunday. Unity is inclusive, welcoming people of all walks of life in dignity and love. We believe that love, strength, and goodness dwells within you. May we all live in unity with God, humanity, and all of God's creation. And remember, as Reverend Caesar says, life is meant to be good.
Hi, I'm Howard Caesar, and I'm here to invite you to read my new book, 1 + 1 is 1. I believe the world is aching for oneness, and so is every person at a soul level. Oneness is an experience of the heart that transcends the mind. More than an intellectual concept, it's a feeling that expands our relationship with the divine and all its creation. It puts us in touch with life in all its forms in a deeper, more connected way. In the book, I explain what I mean by 1 + 1 is 1, for its tremendously important universal spiritual principle that we're all called to live. My intention with this book is to remind and inspire you, the reader, to realize that the soul's deepest longing is oneness, and that through its pages, to awaken, restore, and deepen your sense of oneness with the all that is. I hope you're led to pick up a copy and benefit from its contents.